This is the Chapter 3 Stigma podcast. This podcast was created to be there for any individual who feels like they are at a low point in life and are confused, seemingly alone, and helpless in their situation. I am a recovering alcoholic, and I felt this way too, until I sat across the table from another addict who shared his story and made me realize that I was not alone in my struggles. My life was saved by this realization, and I hope to help anyone struggling by sharing my story to show you that you are not alone and that life can contain unbelievable riches and meaning. Welcome. I am glad you are here. Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the Chapter 3 Stigma podcast. Today's episode will be the second part of the Pillars of Fitness short series that we're doing to cover what I see as the key pillars of recovery, and those are physical, emotional, and spiritual fitness. So last week's episode, we dove into emotional fitness, and for this week, we're going to do a quick dive into the realm of physical fitness. Now, I really do want to differentiate this podcast from kind of what's seen as the normal, physical fitness podcast. We're not going to talk like specific workouts or studies even that are done in the space of the traditional realm of physical fitness. Instead, I want to talk through kind of the evolution of my perspective on physical fitness and some of the key elements of it and really why they matter and what changes or impacts that I've seen in my life as I have started focusing on this key pillar of staying in active recovery. So one of the things that really started me on the thought process around forming the concept of these pillars of recovery is that it is very common for people to talk about physical and mental health. And it really never made sense to me how we were actually differentiating between physical and mental health. Like no one seemed to have a really good definition. And like it kind of seemed that as soon as you went above the neckline, people started referring to inefficiencies or like areas of opportunity or improvement as like the mental health space. But that always bothered me. Like in all reality, like every aspect of what happens within your body is physical in nature. Like your brain is a physical structure. The channels of communication that occur within your brain and within your body are largely electrical and chemical driven. So it's like all of those are very like physical aspects to life. So that's why when I talk about physical fitness, like I really focus on the entirety of every single physical aspect of your body and your system. I think it deals with the way your neurons are firing, the way that cellular energy is produced, the way you fuel your system. All of this is physical in nature, which means it is way more than what you see on the outside to really grasp how someone is doing, how you yourself are doing in the realm of physical fitness. And I know I've talked about this before, and I'm overly obsessed or biased about it, but like I think a lot about the nervous system and I guess like the health and overall well-being of my own and other people's nervous system. And I think one of the reasons I tend to obsess over it is in being an alcoholic. Alcohol is a huge disruptor of overall nervous function. And when I was in the throes of my battle with alcoholism, especially in the like final 2-3 years of my battle with alcoholism, I could really feel that my nervous system was incredibly disrupted and really had an inability to communicate well. And the ways that this manifested for me was most severely, and honestly, even saying this makes me saddened today that this is the case. But I have this very distinct memory of holding my son in my arms when he was, less than 2 weeks old, and looking at him. And the thought that went through my mind at that time was, I know I should feel something. I know I should feel joy. I know I should feel intense love. And I just felt deadening sensation. I felt really as close to nothing as I've ever experienced. And that fact is just it makes it so apparent and so stark to me that your nervous system's ability to fire, transmit, and receive signals is such a key and important aspect to your overall fitness, and specifically within the realm of physical fitness. Other ways that I would see this manifest while I was dealing with my battle with alcoholism was tremors, which is, when it comes down to it, the way I've started to think about it is tremors are really an overstimulation of your system. So I was using alcohol and abusing alcohol so much that in order to operate at baseline functionality, my nervous system was really sent into overdrive, because due to the muting effects and the depressive effects of the alcohol, basically my nervous system was operating hyper inefficiently anyway. And so then when the alcohol got stripped away and flushed out of the system, my nervous system was not able to adjust quickly. And therefore my nervous system was just in this crazy overdrive mode, which manifested in physical shaking. And for me specifically, my right hand would shake really, really bad. And I've said this before, there were mornings I went to log on to my computer to start working when I couldn't even type out my password normally. I'd have to use a single finger and just hit one letter at a time with that finger. And it's just it was this terrible situation where my nervous system could not adjust and kind of come to this point of equilibrium. Those were the two biggest manifestations of this nervous system impact that I saw. Some others is being significantly more uncoordinated, where I was fumbling, dropping things a lot, and just kind of tripping in scenarios that didn't really make sense. And these were in times when I was sober. And it was just, again, that my nervous system was so fried that in those periods of sobriety, it still wasn't like they were fit or in any good shape at all. Another way this would manifest is intense feelings of overwhelm and being overtaken by anxiety, where I could not stop obsessing or worrying about something that really ultimately didn't matter. But the way it would impact me is I would lie awake at night for 2 or 3 nights in a row and not sleep. And so it's my system was firing at an extremely high and disruptive rate at a time of day when it shouldn't have, at night when I should have been sleeping. And then conversely, during the day, I would be so tired and fatigued that my system was basically in shutdown mode, more or less. And to go along with that, I would have pretty intense brain fog, and I was easily fatigued, mentally fatigued, or maybe I should say intellectually fatigued, since I'm trying to kind of challenge a process and conversation around mental health. So I'll say intellectually fatigued, where I just knew that I knew the answer to something, but I could not recall it. And those were really frustrating instances. And then, of course, all of this would kind of manifest into me just being physically tired and very slow to get moving and start my day in the mornings. And again, this is even during a week's long stretch of being sober. So short stints of sobriety that I would go through and still have all of these traits kind of manifest. So the way I think about measuring overall physical fitness, like obviously as most people think about it, it's like, well, look in the mirror. Like, how do you look in the mirror compared to sort of what the standard or expectation is? And of course, like as kind of the trend is going, like I really don't think that's the best way to measure physical fitness level. Some thought patterns or questions that I ask myself is, first, how mentally clear do I feel? There are times when I find that I'm in a conversation, a deep conversation, and I'm saying something and I like truly couldn't tell you where the words or the thoughts are coming from, but like as they come out of my mouth, they like kind of sound right and at least halfway intelligent, especially coming from me. Now, I know you all that are following along or listening to this podcast would laugh at that, because I don't know that much of anything that I've said during this entire process has been that intelligent. But anyway, for my standards, like it's been a few moments like this where it's like really surprising, and it's a great feeling to know that your brain and all of its systems are firing at that high of a level, that you can think so rapidly and so much so like more on your feet. Another measure of physical fitness is, are you able to feel emotions that properly fit the situation? And so what I mean by this is hearkening back to my example of my son. I was holding my newborn son. I should have felt joy. I should have felt love. And I didn't, to the degree I should have. And at the same time, like situations that call for, feelings of sadness or loss, like ensure that you are feeling or capable of feeling the emotions that fit the situation. Another measure of physical fitness level is, in the morning, how quickly can you get up and be at 100%, both like in terms of being able to move your body as well as being sharp intellectually? Does it require you significant like stretching, warm-up time, like a load of coffee to ramp up in the morning? Or if the situation demands it, would you be ready to go? Another measure that's kind of fun to play around with and also a little bit embarrassing: lay yourself down flat on the floor. How difficult is it for you to stand up to your feet? How much time does it take? How many points of contact do you have to put on the floor to get yourself up? How much moaning and groaning do you do? And then finally, what I think is one of the best measures of physical fitness, because it is quite literally what humans are specialized to do and have evolved to do: how far can you walk just without stopping? And a bonus for how far can you walk with additional weight on your shoulders. So taking these ideas and these kind of like metrics, do a real review of where you are and how you stand with regards to physical fitness. Now, I'm going to kind of skim over this next part because we have a podcast coming up that'll do a little deeper dive in this. But I do want to address and just cover like how I started working on my physical fitness, because today I'm in a significantly different and better, much healthier and fit place than I was a year ago. And really for me, it all started with movement. Moving my body through space is truly how I think about it. And find something that you can do. I found something that I can do reliably, and just committed myself to doing that every single day. I think one aspect about being in active recovery that has genuinely helped me is this mindset shift around not getting tripped up in the future, not getting hung up in the past, and just focusing on today. Because when I wake up in the morning and I look at the day, when I look at my next, 18 hours, I guarantee you that I can find 10, 15 minutes in there to fit in deliberate movement. So because I have stopped stretching my goals out and stretching my time horizon out for how long I have to commit to something, because I am truly focused on today and today only, finding time to move has been really quite simple. Ultimately, I think a good sweat really can't be beat in terms of giving you that mood and emotional boost. But honestly, doing something as simple as walking, stretching, just doing anything that gets you up, gets you active, and gets you moving your body through space. Another aspect of this mentality that I think is very helpful is view everything you do as a practice that can never be perfected. Like this mentality, as odd as it sounds, when I'm out on walks, I think about like that the fact that I am practicing walking. Like that's a very weird thing to say, but it's really helped transform my like self-forgiveness as well as it has helped me look at things through the lens of improvement, even if those improvements are incremental in nature. And, it allows me to continue working, continue putting myself in the space to move every day, even if I'm in a period of plateauing as it pertains to like overall performance or something like that. So viewing movement as a practice that can never be perfected has really lowered the barrier for me to just do something. And that's the final aspect of this is stop making excuses and just do something. There was a small whiteboard in our tiny gym in rehab that the day before I left, I decided to clear the space and just write the phrase, stop making excuses, just do something. One of the things that I had picked up on in my short time in rehab, as much as I loved the majority of the individuals in there with me, I think it's especially prevalent in the world of addiction, but it applies elsewhere as well. Like people have a tendency to avoid taking action. And I think cutting out and like truly looking at your reasons for not taking action, just label them as a flat out excuse, and then ignore them, get rid of them, do something, do anything to cut out those excuses and just move. So to dive into rehab a little bit in my time there, we would have, say, like 2 to 3 hour breaks around lunch. 95% of the people, at least, would go out to the central courtyard space, pull out a pack of cigarettes, smoke, shoot hoops, play games, whatever, just hang out. Before I would allow myself to go out there and be with others, I committed that I would move in some manner for at least 15 minutes every single day, and that I would not tolerate a day without movement while I was in rehab. And another aspect to this is the more I did it, the more people would question if they could join. And I was always willing and able to have someone join with me. But the very important distinction and quite frankly, a life lesson that I learned that has been very applicable to my time in active recovery is I never, ever depended on anyone else showing up for that workout or for that movement session in order for me to do it. So if someone told me that they were going to work out with me at lunch and lunchtime came and they bailed, I didn't bail. This has been incredibly important in my travels down the road of active recovery, because you see it with relapse a lot. You see people struggling, and if you're not in the space where you are not truly independent of other people's actions or behaviors or outcomes, you are at a high risk of physically relapsing yourself. So this distinction where I kind of stopped depending on other people to show up in order to do what I knew was right for me, that was a huge lesson that I definitely didn't think I would ever experience or learn, coming from this dinky little gym in rehab with really one rowing machine and enough space to do burpees and wall sits. So the other secondary impact, and really the thing, quite frankly, that I enjoyed the most due to my movement practice, was my sleep dramatically improved in just a few days of starting my movement practice, taking care of myself, eating decently well. I can't even say that I ate well in my time in rehab because, the food wasn't really my choice. But even so, I was sleeping so well. And what I was discovering was because I was sleeping well, I was waking up. I was able to start and form new habits such as journaling, meditation in the mornings because I was waking up and getting to that 100% operational level a lot quicker than I had been before. So ultimately, movement is something that I don't let slip for really 2 days in a row. I'm extremely deliberate about my movement practice. It's been since May 15th of 2023 that I have gone more than a single day without movement. And the reason I know it's May 15th is the one restriction that they put you on for your first 2 days during your detoxification period in rehab is that you can't use a gym, and they literally watch you and don't let you work out of fear of the impacts that the detox meds have on your system. So I did constrain myself during that time, but May 15th of 2023 is the last time that I didn't do anything. And that includes a stint in the hospital with my wife and with our daughter, Lucy. And it's just it's become a practice for me, and it just sets everything else in place. And so for me, how that has kind of changed things over the last year is physical fitness is way more to me right now than what I look like in the mirror. It's the ability to think clearly and concisely. It's ending the day tired and content, and having a mind that is capable and ready to switch off and recharge, and wake up the next day and get going. I have the energy, focus, and enthusiasm to play with my son whenever he wants. Yes, there are days where towards the end of the day I'm getting tired, and my wife steps in big time, and I love her for that. But I am almost always there for my son whenever he wants to play. And that's just that's such a key part of our relationship at this point, and it will be a key part in our continued relationship. Ultimately, I just feel myself at this point, which is a very that's a very squishy metric right there. I understand that, but I just feel so aligned with everything, my entire body, all of my systems. I just feel myself now, which I absolutely could not have said. And part of that is absolutely the emotional and the spiritual fitness advancements that I've made in the last year as well. But the physical aspect of it plays a huge part. I am able to feel stretched and challenged intellectually at this point. A year ago, I was struggling so much that I was just trying to keep my head above water. Now I feel like I'm able to look for areas of pursuit intellectually that is like very, very challenging and very rewarding and stimulating for me. And those are challenges I never would have taken a year ago because of how close to being underwater I felt. And then finally, and quite honestly, like this is probably the thing I feel most proud about, is being able to feel emotions that fit the scenario. Obviously, with everything that we went through with our daughter Lucy, there was intense suffering, intense grief. But being able to feel those emotions and reflect on the situation and go, this is okay to be feeling this right now has been incredible. Had that situation occurred when I was drinking, I think what would have manifested is a lot more rage, and just like pure anger, which is not always a fit for the scenario. And so I'm incredibly grateful for that. But yeah, anyway, just want to end this show with kind of a note, like y'all are getting a live shot at me just kind of working these concepts and patterns out in my head. And so, I've really appreciated the engagement, that has been created in the small but powerful Chapter 3 Stigma ecosystem. So I'd love to hear thoughts, love to hear feedback on all of this. Again, like the root of this entire thought process as it pertains to physical fitness is just like the concept of this divide between physical and mental health never made much sense to me. And it's just like, I think our physical systems are a lot more encompassing than we really give it credit to. And I think changing our vantage points and how we think and talk about that is helpful for us, because like you can figure out where the gap is then, and what measures are important and what things you can do to make changes for the betterment of your life ultimately. So appreciate the time. Y'all are amazing. And that's all I've got today. If you enjoyed this podcast, share it with others or give us a rating on your channel of choice. My hope is that my story can help others in their struggles with addiction or any other aspects of life that they feel could be bettered. You can follow us on social media at Chapter 3 Stigma on Instagram and YouTube. I cannot solve your problems for you, but I can listen. If you want to reach out with a message through one of those channels, I will respond and let you know that you are not alone. All the best, you are loved, and life is worth every struggle and bit of suffering you have to endure. Until next time,